In a cramped Montana gymnasium, exhausted single mother Elise Tyler raised her hand and bid her last $10 on a cursed, flooded mine. The room erupted in laughter, the town joke buying a death trap. For 9 years, she'd survived 3 jobs and crushing medical debt while fighting to keep her daughter. Now, armed with a half-remembered geological survey and pure defiance, she'd made the most mocked decision of her life. What began as public humiliation would become a $240 million discovery, and a battle against ruthless developers determined to steal it all. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Elise's alarm screamed at 4:47 a.m., 13 minutes before she'd set it. The cheap clock radio had been dying for months, losing time in unpredictable increments. She couldn't afford to replace it. She couldn't afford to replace anything. Her hand shot out in the darkness, muscle memory guiding her to the snooze button. No time for that luxury. Emma needed her insulin check before school, and Elise's shift at the Copper Bend diner started at 6. The apartment was cold. Mrs. Kopecky kept the heat low to save money. Never mind that her tenants paid utilities. Elise pulled on yesterday's jeans and the cleanest work shirt she could find in the pile beside her mattress. The bedroom, if you could call a partitioned corner of the living room a bedroom, smelled like coffee grounds and exhaustion. Emma's actual bedroom was barely larger than a closet, but Elise had given her daughter the only real room in the place. She pushed through the door quietly, though Emma was already awake. The girl always seemed to sense when her blood sugar was off. "Morning, baby," Elise whispered. Emma sat up, her dark hair tangled from sleep. 8 years old and already practiced at this routine. She held out her finger without being asked. Elise prepped the glucose meter. $1.47 for a box of test strips that lasted 2 weeks if they were lucky. The lancet pricked Emma's fingertip. 3 seconds. The number appeared. 210. High but not dangerous. Not yet. "We need to adjust your breakfast insulin," Elise said, keeping her voice light. Emma hated feeling like a burden. "Maybe an extra unit." "I'm sorry, Mom." "Hey!" Elise tucked a strand of hair behind Emma's ear. "Never apologize for your body. It's doing the best it can." Emma's smile was small but genuine. She reached for the book on her nightstand, Montana's Geological Wonders, borrowed from the library 3 renewals ago. "Did you know the Ashford mine used to produce gold? Before the flooding." Elise drew up the insulin, checked the dosage twice. Everything with diabetes had to be precise. One mistake could mean the emergency room. Another bill they couldn't pay. "Ms. Rodriguez says they're auctioning it tonight." "The mine, at school." Emma watched the needle slide into her skin without flinching. She'd been doing this since she was 3. It seemed sad. All that gold just sitting there underwater. Elise disposed of the syringe in their makeshift sharps container, a laundry detergent bottle with a hole cut in the lid. Gold's not much use to anyone if you can't reach it. But what if you could? The question lingered as Elise rushed through her own morning routine. Toast for Emma. Nothing for herself. She'd eat scraps at the diner. Her ancient Honda Civic coughed to life on the 3rd try, burning oil that left a blue haze in the parking lot. The diner was already humming when she arrived. Jess Moreno had opened. Her dark eyes ringed with the same exhaustion Elise felt in her bones. "Table 6 has been waiting," Jess said, tying her apron. "And your favorite person called." Elise's stomach dropped. "The debt collector?" 3 times. "I told him you were dead, but he didn't believe me." Despite everything, Elise smiled. Jess had that effect, finding humor in the grinding machinery of poverty. "Thanks for covering. What are friends for?" Jess squeezed her shoulder. "Besides, misery loves company. My car payment's due tomorrow, and I'm about $40 short." $40. For some people in Copper Bend, that was lunch. For Elise and Jess, it was the difference between keeping your car and losing your job. The morning shift blurred into the familiar rhythm of coffee pours and order calls. Elise smiled at customers who didn't see her. Clean tables where people left pennies for tips. ignored the whispers that followed her through the dining room. That's the Tyler girl, husband left her. Poor thing can barely keep her head above water. At table 6, Raymond Hartwell sat reading the Helena Independent Record. Mid-50s, silver at his temples, wearing a confidence that came with generational wealth. His family had owned half of Copper Bend once. Now they owned 3/4 of it. More coffee, Mr. Hartwell? Elise kept her voice professional. He glanced up, his smile practiced. Thank you, Elise. How's that daughter of yours? The question felt like a test. Emma's doing well. Good, good. Growing children need stability. He returned to his paper, dismissing her. But the message had been delivered. Everyone in town knew about the custody filing. Everyone had opinions about whether Elise Tyler was fit to raise her own child. By noon, Elise's feet ached and her back screamed. She had 20 minutes to wolf down a burger. Yesterday's mistake order that would have been thrown out before her shift at the Moonlight Hotel. 4 hours of scrubbing toilets and changing sheets. 4 hours of invisible labor. In the hotel storage closet, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ms. Tyler? This is First Mountain Credit Services regarding account number. She hung up. The 20th call this month. Medical debt didn't forgive, didn't forget. It just grew, accumulating interest like snow in an avalanche. The grocery store shift started at 5. Morrison's was Copper Bend's only supermarket. A relic from the 1970s with flickering fluorescent lights and linoleum that had been mopped 10,000 times. Elise stocked shelves, her hands moving automatically, her mind drifting. Elise. Diane Cooper materialized in the cereal aisle like a well-dressed ghost. Michael's mother. Emma's grandmother. The woman who'd never forgiven Elise for existing. Diane. Elise kept stacking boxes of cornflakes. I wanted you to know I'm taking Emma to dinner next Tuesday. Her doctor's appointment is at 4, so I'll pick her up from school. I can take her to the appointment. Can you? Diane's eyebrow arched. With your schedule? I have the time, Elise. And Emma deserves consistency. The implication hung in the air, you can't provide that. Elise's hands trembled as she reached for another box. I'll think about it. The hearing is in 2 weeks. The judge will want to know Emma's being cared for properly. Diane's voice dropped, almost gentle, almost concerned. I'm not the enemy here. I just want what's best for my granddaughter. Elise waited until Diane's heels clicked away before she let herself breathe. Her shift ended at 7. She picked up Emma from Ms. Rodriguez's classroom, where her daughter sat reading, surrounded by rock samples from the school's geology collection. Mom! Emma's face lit up. Ms. Rodriguez says the auction starts at 7:30. Can we go, please? Ms. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a spine of steel. It might be interesting for Emma. The town's selling off assets. History in the making. Elise checked her phone. 7:12 p.m. She'd worked 14 hours. Her body begged for sleep. But Emma's hopeful expression was hard to resist. Just for a little while, Elise conceded. The high school gymnasium had been transformed into an auction house. Though transformed was generous. Folding chairs faced a podium where Mayor Christine Patterson shuffled papers nervously. Maybe 40 people scattered through the space. Small towns in decline didn't draw crowds. Elise and Emma found seats near the back. Emma clutched her geology book like a talisman, whispering facts about quartz formations and vein deposits. The auction moved quickly. A warehouse on 3rd Street went for $5,000. The old Henderson property sold for $12,000. Hartwell bought both with casual waves of his bidding paddle, never looking up from his phone. Then Mayor Patterson cleared her throat. Next item, the Ashford mine property. 47 acres, including mineral rights. The mine has been closed since 1987 due to flooding. Property sold as is, no warranties implied. The room shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew the Ashford mine. 3 men had died when the lower shafts flooded. The property had been cursed ever since, drowning in water and bad luck. Hartwell smiled. $5. Laughter rippled through the gymnasium. $5 for 47 acres. It was an insult. A joke. Mayor Patterson waited the required interval. Do I hear? Elise's hand shot up. The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere desperate. $10. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. Heads turned. Emma's eyes went wide. Hartwell's smile vanished. He twisted in his seat, his gaze finding Elise like a missile locking onto a target. Going once, Mayor Patterson said, uncertainty creeping into her voice. Going twice. Someone in the front row snickered. Then another. The laughter built, rolling through the gymnasium. The Tyler woman, they were thinking. The one who can barely afford groceries. Buying a flooded mine with her last $10. Hartwell's expression was ice. $15. The room held its breath. Elise felt Emma's hand slip into hers. Felt every eye in Copper Bend judging her, mocking her, waiting for her to fold. She'd spent 9 years folding. 9 years apologizing for existing. 9 years being small. 20, Elise said clearly. The gavel fell before Hartwell could respond. Sold. To bidder. Mayor Patterson consulted her clipboard. Elise Tyler. The room erupted. Not applause, laughter. Pure, cruel amusement. That crazy woman just bought a hole full of water. That desperate, foolish woman just threw away money she didn't have. Jess materialized beside her, gripping her arm. What the hell did you just do? Elise stared at the podium, at Mayor Patterson's confused expression, at Hartwell's cold fury. She didn't know. She had no idea what she'd just done. But in the back row, a man in his 50s with weathered hands and careful eyes watched without laughing. Marcus Wade had worked the Ashford mine before it flooded. He'd lost friends in those dark tunnels. And he was the only one in the room who wasn't smiling. Elise signed papers she barely read, her hand shaking as she wrote a check for $20. Money that should have gone toward Emma's insulin supplies. The crowd dispersed, still chuckling. Hartwell left without a word, his phone already pressed to his ear. In the parking lot, Emma looked up at her mother. Is this bad? Elise unlocked their car, the engine taking 4 tries this time. I don't know, baby. Ms. Rodriguez says sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take a chance. Ms. Rodriguez is right. Elise pulled out of the lot, her hands tight on the wheel. But sometimes brave and stupid look exactly the same. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, the book says the Ashford mine was abandoned before they finished exploring the western vein. They hit water before they could map it properly. Something stirred in Elise's memory. A geological survey she'd seen weeks ago at the library, researching Montana history for one of Emma's school projects. A report suggesting the mine had been closed prematurely, that the flooding had come just before a potentially significant deposit. What had she just done? Behind them, Copper Bend's lights faded into darkness. Ahead, the road stretched toward their cold apartment, toward tomorrow's shifts, toward the grinding machinery of their poverty. But somewhere in the back of Elise's mind, a small, dangerous thought began to grow. What if Emma was right? What if that mine held something worth more than $20? What if, for once in her life, her impulsive desperation had pointed her toward something real? The car's engine rattled. The check engine light glowed. Emma fell asleep against the window, and Elise drove home, unaware that Raymond Hartwell was already making calls, already ensuring she'd regret the moment she dared to raise her hand. The check engine light still glowed as Elise pulled into their apartment complex. Emma stirred against the window, her breath fogging the glass. $20. Elise had just spent $20 they didn't have on 47 acres of flooded rock. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jess. People are already talking. Brace yourself. Morning came too soon. Elise's alarm screamed at 4:47 a.m. The broken radio still running fast. Emma's insulin check. The diner shift. The machinery of survival grinding forward, except now something had shifted. Now she was more than invisible. She was a joke. The diner proved it within the first hour. Table 3, usually a $5 tip, left 73 cents. The coins spelled out a message. Loose change for the woman throwing money away. Table 6 laughed openly when she approached with the coffee pot. By 9 a.m., her tip jar held $4. 12. Your boyfriend's here? Jess muttered, nodding toward the door. Raymond Hartwell entered with 2 men in suits. They took the corner booth, the one with a view of the entire restaurant. Hartwell's eyes found Elise immediately. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Coffee, he said when she approached. And congratulations on your purchase. Quite the investment. The men with him chuckled. Corporate lawyers, probably. Or mining consultants. People who knew exactly what a flooded mine was worth. Thank you, Mr. Hartwell. Elise kept her voice steady. You know, my grandfather owned that mine. Before the accident. He stirred cream into his coffee slowly, deliberately. Family legacy and all. I hope you got a good deal. The words were friendly. The message wasn't. You took something from me. By noon, Elise's manager called her into the office. Stan was a decent man, which made it worse. I have to cut your hours, he said, not meeting her eyes. Budget constraints. Stan, I'm sorry, Elise. It's not personal. But it was. Everything in a small town was personal. The hotel was worse. Her supervisor reassigned her to the worst rooms, the ones where truckers stayed, where she'd scrub cigarette burns and worse. The message was clear. Laugh at the town's economic structure. Pay the price. She was pulling trash from under a bed when her phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Tyler, this is Deputy Aaron Brooks. I need you to come to the station. Her hands went cold. Is Emma okay? Emma's fine. This is about a legal matter. The police station smelled like old coffee and institutional despair. Deputy Brooks, Aaron, she remembered him from high school, looked uncomfortable in his uniform. He'd been poor once too, before the badge gave him a ladder to climb. He handed her an envelope. I'm sorry about this. Inside, a custody petition. Emergency hearing. Diane Cooper was citing financial irresponsibility and erratic decision-making that endangers the child's welfare. The mine. Diane was using the mine. When's the hearing? Elise's voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. 2 weeks. Aaron shifted his weight. Look, Elise, I don't... She left before he could finish. Made it to her car. Made it to the diner bathroom before the panic attack hit. Her chest locked. The walls closed in. 9 years of holding everything together, and it was collapsing over $20 and 47 acres of water. The bathroom door opened. Elise. Jess knelt beside her on the cracked tile. Didn't ask questions. Just held her while she shook. They're trying to take Emma, Elise managed. Over my dead body. Jess's voice was steel. We'll figure this out. But figuring it out cost money. Lawyers cost money. Everything cost money they didn't have. That night, after Emma was asleep, Elise drove to the public library. The building closed at 9, but she knew the head librarian left the side door unlocked until 9:30. A small-town courtesy for people who needed internet access. The geological survey took 20 minutes to find, buried in the Montana archives. 1986. A consulting report on the Ashford mine's potential, written 3 months before the flooding. Preliminary core samples suggest continuation of auriferous quartz vein extending west-southwest. Recommendation: pursue exploratory drilling in lower western shaft before abandonment. High probability of significant deposit. The author's name was at the bottom. Dr. Frank Morrison, geological consultant. Frank Morrison, her father, the man who'd disappeared into work after her mother died, who'd sent birthday cards with checks inside but never called, who'd tried to visit once when Emma was born, and Elise had slammed the door in his face. He'd known. 20 years ago, her father had known there was gold in that mine. Elise printed the report, 50 cents she didn't have, and sat in the parking lot staring at the pages. The machinery in her mind was grinding through possibilities. None of them good. She needed verification. She needed expertise. She needed her father. Ms. Tyler. She jumped. A man stood beside her car, Marcus Wade, the one who hadn't laughed at the auction. Up close, she could see the weight he carried, the survivor's guilt that lived in his eyes. "That mine," he said quietly. "It wasn't bad luck. It was bad timing." "What do you mean?" "I worked there. Day of the flooding, I was off shift. My friends weren't." His jaw tightened. "We hit water fast, had to evacuate. But before that, the last week. We were seeing something. Gold traces in the rock. More every day. Why didn't anyone go back? Lawsuits. Insurance. Hartwell's grandfather sold it cheap to cut his losses." Marcus looked toward the mountains. "That report you're holding, I remember when that geologist came through. Smart man. He saw what we saw. You knew my father? Worked with him for 2 weeks. He believed there was something down there. Something big." Marcus met her eyes. "Question is, Miss Tyler, you ready to find out if he was right?" Elise looked at the report, at the mine deed in her glove box, at the custody papers on her passenger seat. "I don't have a choice," she said. Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we better get started. That mine won't pump itself." Marcus's pickup truck rattled down the service road at 11:47 p.m., headlights cutting through Montana darkness. Elise sat in the passenger seat, Emma safely asleep at Jess's house, her mind spinning through the lies she'd told. Extra shifts, emergency inventory, anything but the truth, that she was about to break into a flooded mine with a man she barely knew, chasing a 20-year-old geological survey written by the father she hadn't spoken to in years. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked. Elise thought about the custody papers, about Diane's smile, about 9 years of being invisible, then 3 days of being a joke. "No." He nodded. "Good. Anyone who's sure about this kind of thing is lying to themselves." The Ashford mine entrance loomed ahead, a wound in the mountainside, sealed with rusted chain link and warning signs. Danger. No trespassing. Flooded shafts. The fence had gaps where time and weather had done their work. Marcus killed the engine. The silence pressed in, broken only by wind through pine trees and the distant sound of water. Always water, flowing somewhere in the darkness below. "My friends died in there," Marcus said quietly. "Tommy Chin, Bill Whitaker, Ray Kowalski. We'd worked together 5 years. Ray had a daughter Emma's age. We don't have to do this." "Yes, we do." He grabbed a flashlight from behind the seat. "Because if I'm right, if there's something down there worth finding, then maybe they didn't die for nothing. Maybe that mine has one more chance to give something back." They moved through the fence gap like ghosts. The mine entrance exhaled cold, damp air that smelled like stone and rust and decades of abandonment. Marcus's flashlight beam revealed timber supports sagging under their own weight, rails disappearing into black water that filled the shaft 20 feet in. "Jesus," Elise whispered. "This is just the entrance. Main flooding's deeper." Marcus played his light across the walls, reading them like a language Elise didn't speak. "See those marks? High water line. It's dropped about 6 inches since '87. Natural drainage, probably through the lower tunnels. Can we pump it? Pump it? Lady, we can try." He walked to his truck and returned with equipment that looked older than Elise. Portable pump, rubber hoses, extension cords that snaked back to a generator he'd hidden in the tree line. "This is what I could borrow without questions. It's not much. It's more than I have." They worked until 3 a.m. that first night. The pump coughed to life, spitting brown water onto the hillside. The noise was deafening, terrifying. Surely someone would hear, would come investigate, would discover them. But the mine was miles from town, and Copper Bend had learned to ignore the Ashford property decades ago. By dawn, they'd lowered the water level 3 inches, progress measured in fractions. "Same time tomorrow?" Marcus asked as pink light touched the mountains. Elise calculated Emma's insulin, the diner shift, the hotel, the grocery store. Sleep subtracted to 0. Same time. The second night, Marcus taught her to read the rock, how to identify quartz veins, how to spot mineralization patterns. His hands were steady on the stone, decades of experience showing her what her father's report had described in clinical language. Gold doesn't just appear, he explained. It forms in veins, following faults in the rock. You're looking for quartz with sulfide staining. See this yellow-brown color? Iron pyrite. Fool's gold. But where there's pyrite, sometimes there's the real thing. The third night, Elise nearly crashed her car driving to the mine. Exhaustion had become her constant companion, riding shotgun through every moment. At the diner, she'd poured coffee into a customer's water glass. At the hotel, she'd cleaned the same bathroom twice, forgetting she'd already done it. Emma noticed. "Mom, you look tired. Just extra shifts, baby. Are you working on the mine?" The question caught Elise off guard. Emma's eyes were bright, curious, hopeful, not worried, excited. "Maybe a little," Elise admitted. "That's so cool." Emma hugged her tight. "You're like a real prospector, like the people in my book." By the fifth night, the pump had become part of Elise's heartbeat. The rhythmic chug-chug-chug following her through dreams she barely had time to have. Marcus brought coffee in a thermos, teaching her about shaft safety, about the signs of unstable ground, about the moment in 1987 when the wall had given way and water had come rushing in like judgment. "I hear it sometimes," he said. "In my sleep, that roar." His cough was worse. Elise noticed how he'd stop to catch his breath, how his hand would press against his chest. Black lung disease he'd mentioned casually. Decades of breathing stone dust taking its payment. "You should see a doctor," Elise said. "And you should sleep. We all got things we should do." The seventh night changed everything. They'd pumped enough water to access the first chamber. Wading in up to their knees, headlamps cutting through darkness that hadn't seen light in 37 years. The walls glistened with moisture. Rails emerged from the water like bones. Then Marcus stopped, his light fixed on the western wall. "Elise, look." She followed his beam. At first, she saw nothing but wet stone. Then the light caught something. A glimmer, thin as spider silk, running through quartz like a golden thread. "Is that—" Her voice failed. Marcus moved closer, his hand trembling as he touched the vein. Not a trace, not a hint. Presence. The gold ran through the rock in ribbons, visible even to her untrained eyes. "Mother of God," Marcus breathed. "Your father was right." They stood in water and darkness, staring at a fortune that had been sleeping while 3 men died and a town forgot and a single mother bid her last $10 on hope she couldn't name. Elise's phone buzzed. A text from Jess. "Emma's asking when you'll be home." Reality crashed back. The gold was real, which meant everything that came next would be real too. The fighting, the legal battles, the people who would try to take this from her. "We need samples," Marcus said. "And you need an expert. Someone who can verify this officially." Her father's name hung unspoken between them. They were packing samples when headlights swept across the hillside, distant on the main road, but close enough to make Elise's heart stop. Car passed slowly, hunting, then continued on. Marcus killed his headlamp. That was Hartwell's Mercedes. "He knows." "Not yet, but he's looking." Marcus handed her a bag of rock samples, each one heavy with possibility. "Make the call, Elise, before he figures out what we found." Elise sat in her car outside the library at 2 a.m., staring at a phone number she'd found in the University of Montana faculty directory. Dr. Frank Morrison. Office hours by appointment. Email preferred. Her thumb hovered over the call button for 20 minutes. 20 years. That's how long it had been since she'd really talked to him. 20 years since her mother's funeral. Since he'd buried himself in fieldwork across 3 continents. Since he'd chosen rocks over his daughter. The samples from the mine sat in a grocery bag on her passenger seat. Evidence. Hope. Desperation crystallized into stone. She pressed call. It rang 4 times. Then, Morrison. His voice rougher than she remembered, scratched by age and cigarettes he'd probably never quit. "It's Elise." Silence stretched. She pushed forward. "Elise Tyler. I know who you are." Something shifted in his tone. Not warmth exactly. Recognition. It's 2 in the morning. I found something. At a mine. The words tumbled out wrong. Disconnected. You wrote a report in 1986. The Ashford mine in Copper Bend. You said there was gold. The silence lasted so long she thought he'd hung up. The Ashford, he finally said. Jesus, that place should be condemned. I bought it. At auction. For $20. She heard how crazy it sounded. I found your report and I've been pumping it out and there's gold, Dad. Real gold. Running through the western wall just like you said. You've been inside? Alone? With someone who used to work there. We found a vein. I need. Pride caught in her throat. She forced it down. I need you to verify it. Officially. I need an expert. Frank Morrison breathed into the phone. She could almost see him in some cluttered university office, surrounded by rock samples and geological maps, trying to reconcile the daughter who'd slammed a door in his face with the woman asking for help. I can be there in 3 days, he said. The call ended without goodbye. Some wounds were too old for pleasantries. Elise told Emma the next morning, watching her daughter's face transform from sleepy confusion to wide-eyed wonder. Grandpa Frank is coming? Here? He's going to look at the mine. He's a geologist, he knows about rocks and gold. Emma clutched her geology book. Can I meet him, please? The hope in her voice hurt. Emma had only seen Frank once, as a baby too young to remember. But children forgave easily, built bridges adults had burned. We'll see, baby. 3 days felt like 3 years. Elise worked her shifts in a fog, jumping at every sound, expecting Hartwell to appear with lawyers or sheriffs or some new way to destroy her. The pump ran every night. The water level dropped inches at a time. The gold vein grew more visible, more real, more terrifying. Then Frank Morrison's rental car, a practical sedan covered in road dust, pulled up outside their apartment at 4 p.m. on a Thursday. Elise watched from the window as he climbed out. 63 years old now, his hair white, his frame still lean but stooped slightly forward. He wore field clothes, cargo pants, worn boots, a vest with too many pockets. A man more comfortable in mountains than living rooms. Emma pressed against the window beside her. He looks nice. He's awkward, Elise warned. He doesn't know how to talk to people. But when Frank knocked, when Elise opened the door, he was holding a box. Inside, 3 geology books suited for children. A fossil trilobite. A magnifying glass. I heard you liked rocks, he told Emma. Emma's shyness lasted 30 seconds. Then she was showing him her collection, talking about sedimentary layers and mineral hardness, asking questions faster than he could answer. Frank knelt on their threadbare carpet, speaking her language, the language of stone and time and patient formation. Elise watched from the kitchen, something breaking and reforming in her chest. Marcus met them at the mine at dusk. He and Frank shook hands like old colleagues, not strangers separated by decades. You look like hell, Frank said. Black lung. Marcus's smile was grim. Souvenir from the good old days. You should see a pulmonologist. You should have stayed in touch with your daughter. Frank's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fair enough. They descended into the mine, Elise, Frank, and Marcus, leaving Emma with Jess and stern instructions not to move. The pump had done its work. The chamber was accessible, water down to ankle deep, the western wall exposed and glistening. Frank's professional demeanor crumbled the moment his headlamp found the vein. He moved forward like a man in a trance, his hands tracing the gold thread through quartz. He pulled a jeweler's loop from his vest, examining the rock with an intensity that made Elise remember why he'd been good at his job. Why stones had made more sense to him than people. It's real, he said after 10 minutes. High-grade ore. Native gold in a quartz matrix with visible mineralization. He looked at Elise, something like pride flickering in his eyes. This isn't traces. This is a primary deposit. How much? Marcus asked. Frank moved along the wall, taking samples, making notes in a waterproof notebook. His hands shook slightly, excitement or age, Elise couldn't tell. Based on the vein's width, the gold concentration, and assuming it continues at this grade. He did calculations in his head, lips moving. Conservative estimate? 40 million. But if this vein extends as far as my original survey suggested. He stopped. Looked at Elise. Could be 200 million. Maybe more. The number hung in the damp air. $200 million. 47 acres Elise bought for $20. Jesus Christ, Marcus whispered. Frank's expression shifted from professional to personal. That report, the one you found, I wrote it 3 weeks after your mother died. I came out here running from her funeral, from you, from everything. I spent 2 weeks mapping this mine, writing about gold deposits, pretending that if I focused hard enough on rocks, I wouldn't have to feel anything else. Why didn't you tell anyone? Elise's voice cracked. I did. I told Hartwell's grandfather. He'd already decided to cut his losses, sell the property cheap. Insurance settlements were coming due. He didn't want to hear about maybes and possibilities. Frank wiped water from his face. I should have pushed harder. Should have done a lot of things differently. You should have come home, Elise said. I know. The admission came quiet, heavy. I was a coward. Your mother knew how to love people. I only knew how to love my work. When she died, I didn't know how to be your father without her showing me how. It wasn't forgiveness. Forgiveness would take longer than this moment in a flooded mine. But it was truth, and truth was a place to start. What happens now? Elise asked. Frank's professional mask returned. Now, we document everything. I'll write an official assessment. You need a mining attorney, mineral rights verification, and security. Once word gets out about this, people will come for it. And they won't be gentle. Hartwell already knows something's happening, Marcus said. Then we move fast. Frank looked at Elise. Tell no one. Not until the legal protections are in place. 24 hours. I can have preliminary documentation. 48, we can file claims. Can you keep this quiet that long? Elise thought about Hartwell's car cruising past. About Deputy Brooks watching her. About a small town where secrets lasted as long as it took to walk from one end of Main Street to the other. I'll try, she said. They were loading equipment when headlights appeared on the ridge above. Not approaching, just watching. A car idled there for 30 seconds, then pulled away. Who was that? Frank asked. Someone who wants what we found, Marcus said. In the car, Elise didn't recognize as Lily Hartwell sat with her phone in her lap, her father's most recent text glowing on the screen. Find out what Morrison is doing at that mine. Use whatever means necessary. Her hands trembled as she typed back. I need to think about this. The response came immediately. You work for me. Do your job or find another one. Lily stared at the mine entrance, at the lights moving in the darkness below. Then she made a decision that would cost her everything her family had built, and save a woman she'd never met. She deleted her father's message and drove toward town, already composing the email that would burn every bridge behind her. Deputy Aaron Brooks sat in his patrol car outside the Ashford mine at 6 a.m., writing a report he didn't want to write. License plate numbers. Arrival times. Frank Morrison's rental sedan, parked for 6 hours overnight. Marcus Wade's pickup, engine still warm when Aaron touched the hood at dawn. His phone buzzed. Sheriff Dalton. Get me everything. Hartwell wants details. Aaron typed back. On it. Then sat staring at the words, hating himself. By noon, Raymond Hartwell knew Frank Morrison wasn't just a geologist, he was a prominent one. Published in major journals. Consultant for 3 Fortune 500 mining companies. The kind of expert who didn't fly to Montana unless something significant was happening. Hartwell made 3 calls from his office overlooking Main Street. The first was to his attorney. File a claim. The mineral rights to the Ashford property were never properly transferred from my grandfather's estate. There's a legal gray area we can exploit. The second was to Mayor Patterson. We need a town meeting. Public safety concerns about unlicensed mining activities. Water table contamination risks. You understand. The third call was to Jessica Moreno's apartment. Jess stood in her kitchen 3 days later, staring at an envelope containing $10,000 in cash. Raymond Hartwell's lawyer had been very clear. Weekly reports on Elise's activities. What she found at the mine. Who she talked to. Nothing illegal, just information. Just friendship. $10,000. Her car payment was late. Her electricity bill had a disconnect notice. Her son needed dental work that cost $1,800. Mom! Miguel appeared in the doorway, 11 years old and too observant. Who was that man? Nobody, baby. Go do your homework. $10,000. 30 pieces of silver updated for inflation. The town meeting happened on a Tuesday night. The community center overflowed. Standing room only, people pressed against walls. Word had spread about that Tyler woman's dangerous activities, faster than truth ever could. Mayor Patterson stood at the podium, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. We've gathered tonight to discuss concerns about unauthorized mining operations on the Ashford property. Hartwell sat in the front row, perfectly positioned. Not speaking, he didn't have to. His presence said enough. The water table in Copper Bend is already stressed. The mayor continued, reading from notes someone else had written. Unregulated pumping could contaminate our drinking water. We have families to protect. Children to consider. Elise sat in the back with Emma, feeling eyes crawling over her skin. Judgment rendered before she'd spoken a word. Reverend Brightwell rose when recognized. His voice carried the authority of someone used to being heard. I think we can all agree that responsible development is important. We want what's best for Copper Bend. Perhaps Ms. Tyler, in her enthusiasm, hasn't considered the broader implications. That's bullshit. Heads turned. Mrs. Kopecky stood, all 4'11" of her, thick Polish accent cutting through the political double-talk. You want to talk about water? My family came here in 1952. We drank from wells then. Water was fine. This is not about water. This is about rich man angry that poor woman bought something he wanted. Mrs. Kopecky, Mayor Patterson tried to regain control. No, I speak now. The old woman pointed at Hartwell. Your grandfather, he owned half this town. He treated my husband like dirt. Paid him nothing. Now you do same to her. She gestured at Elise. This girl works 3 jobs. Takes care of sick daughter. Does not complain. And when she tries to help herself, you attack. Shame on you. Shame on all of you. The room erupted in competing voices. Ms. Rodriguez stood next, her teacher's voice cutting through chaos. I've taught Emma Tyler for 2 years. That child is brilliant, kind, and resilient because her mother has taught her to be. Elise Tyler isn't reckless. She's desperate. There's a difference. But they were outnumbered. The fear Hartwell had planted grew like weeds. Contaminated water. Property values dropping. Unqualified people playing with dangerous equipment. After the meeting, Jess found Elise in the parking lot. Emma was already in the car, exhausted. I need to tell you something. Jess's voice shook. Hartwell's lawyer came to see me. He offered me $10,000 to report on what you're doing at the mine. Elise's world tilted. Did you take it? I thought about it. Tears ran down Jess's face. God help me, Elise. I stood in my kitchen and counted how many bills that money would pay. I almost convinced myself it wouldn't really hurt you, that it was just information. But you didn't. Jess pulled the envelope from her purse. Unopened. I can't. I won't. You're my sister in everything but blood. But I need you to know I was tempted. That's how they do it. They find where you're weakest and they push. Elise hugged her tight. Thank you for telling me. There's more. He's spreading rumors. About you being mentally unstable. About Emma being in danger because of your obsession with the mine. As if summoned by her name, Diane Cooper appeared across the parking lot, watching. She raised her phone, taking a picture, evidence for the custody hearing, probably. Elise crying in a parking lot at 10 p.m. while her daughter waited in the car. Frank called that night. I'm coming back. With an attorney. But you need to know, this is going to cost money you don't have yet. Legal fees will run $50,000-$60,000 before we see a dime from that mine. How am I supposed to? We'll figure it out. But Elise, you need to be ready. Hartwell's not playing games. He's filed a claim saying his family's mineral rights were never properly transferred. It's garbage legally, but it'll tie things up for months. Emma appeared in her doorway, small in her pajamas. Mom, are we going to be okay? Elise pulled her close. Yes, baby. We're fighters. We don't give up. But sitting in her car outside the mine at midnight, waiting for Marcus, Elise felt the weight crushing down. The legal battles, the custody hearing in 10 days, the town turning against her, the money she didn't have for lawyers who could protect what she'd found. Marcus arrived coughing, his breathing labored. He'd been pumping the mine alone while Elise dealt with the fallout. The water level was down another 2 feet. The gold vein was fully exposed now, running through the rock like a promise and a threat. You look terrible, Elise said. So do you. He lit a cigarette, hands shaking. Hartwell's lawyer called me, offered me $5,000 to testify that you coerced me into helping you, that I felt unsafe. Jesus, are they offering bribes to everyone? Just the people who matter. Marcus exhaled smoke. I told him what he could do with his $5,000. But Elise, we're running out of time. If Hartwell ties this up legally before Frank can authenticate and file claims, then I lose everything. Emma's voice echoed in her memory. Are we going to be okay? Elise didn't know. For the first time in 9 years of fighting, of surviving, of refusing to break, she genuinely didn't know if they'd be okay. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Ms. Tyler? This is Lily Hartwell. We need to talk. Tonight. It's about my father, and what he's planning to do to you. Lily Hartwell sat in the back corner of the closed Copper Bend diner at 11 p.m., looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Elise slid into the booth across from her, exhaustion making everything feel underwater. Thank you for coming, Lily said. I know you have no reason to trust me. Your father's trying to destroy my life. So no, I don't. Lily opened her laptop. On the screen, emails, internal memos, text messages between Raymond Hartwell and the county water commissioner. A plan, methodical and cruel, to manufacture a contamination crisis. He's going to dump industrial solvents into Copper Creek, Lily said quietly, upstream from town. Then he'll have his people at the county discover contamination in the water supply. They'll trace it to your pumping activities at the mine. Emergency ordinance. Property seizure. You'll be blamed for poisoning the town. Elise's hands went cold. That's insane. That's criminal. That's my father. Lily's voice cracked. I've spent 6 months documenting his business practices, environmental violations, fraudulent contracts. This is just the latest. But this time, she looked up, meeting Elise's eyes. This time he's going to hurt innocent people. Your daughter. The whole town. I can't let that happen. Why are you telling me? Because I'm tired of being complicit. Because I went to law school to help people, not to watch my father crush them. Lily pushed a flash drive across the table. Everything's on here. Emails, financial records, proof of the water contamination plan. It's enough to stop him, maybe even prosecute him. He's your father. I know. Tears slipped down Lily's face. But that doesn't make what he's doing right. My mother, before she got sick, before the cancer, she would have stopped him. She had a conscience. I owe it to her memory to have one too. Elise took the flash drive. Evidence. Ammunition. A weapon against the man trying to take everything from her. He'll never forgive you for this, Elise said. I know. They sat in silence. 2 women on opposite sides of Copper Bend's class divide, united by the simple act of choosing what was right over what was easy. Elise got home at midnight. Emma's bedroom light was off, Jess asleep on the couch after babysitting. Everything looked normal, peaceful. The call came at 2:47 a.m. Ms. Tyler? This is Principal Chun at Copper Bend Elementary. Emma collapsed during after-school care. She's being transported to county medical. Her blood sugar is over 500. The hospital emergency room was fluorescent hell. Emma lay on a gurney, small and pale, and 4 in her arm pumping fluids and insulin into her body. Ketoacidosis, the doctor said. Diabetic crisis. Life-threatening if not caught in time. How did this happen? The doctor's question felt like an accusation. I don't know. I've been monitoring her, testing her 4 times a day. But had she? Really? The past week blurred together. The mind, the meetings, the fear. Had she missed signs? Skipped checks? Let Emma's care slip while she chased gold in the darkness? Diane Cooper arrived at 4 a.m., perfectly composed despite the hour. She took one look at Emma, at the monitors, at Elise's tear-stained face. This is exactly what I've been warning about, Diane said coldly. Your obsession with that mine is putting Emma at risk. I've been working 3 jobs for 9 years. And now you're working a 4th, an illegal one. One that's consuming you. Diane's lawyer appeared behind her, already taking notes. The custody hearing is in 4 days. This will be Exhibit A. Elise wanted to scream, to throw something, to explain that everything, every exhausting, desperate thing she'd done, was for Emma. To give her daughter a life without constant crisis, without medical debt crushing them, without the weight of poverty pressing down. But Emma's monitors beeped steadily, measuring a body stressed beyond its limits by a mother's gamble. The hospital vigil lasted 3 days. Elise slept in the chair beside Emma's bed, leaving only for bathroom breaks and hushed phone calls with Frank and Marcus. The mine sat abandoned. The gold waited. The clock ticked down to Hartwell's plans. On the 2nd day, Lily appeared in the cafeteria where Elise sat staring at coffee she couldn't afford. I sent the files to the state attorney general, Lily said. My father will know it was me soon. I'm sorry. Don't be. I should have done it months ago. Lily paused. There's something else. My father's making you an offer. Through intermediaries, so there's no direct connection. $100,000. Cash. Paid immediately. All legal challenges dropped. You walk away from the mine. $100,000. The number echoed in Elise's exhausted mind. It would pay every medical bill, every debt collector, would cover Emma's insulin for years, would get them out of Mrs. Kopecki's cold apartment into someplace safe, would end the nightmare of the past 2 weeks. Think about it, Lily said. Whatever you found in that mine, it's not worth your daughter's life. Marcus visited that afternoon, his cough worse, his breathing labored. He sat beside Emma's bed. This man who'd lost friends to the same mine that might save or destroy Elise. Take the money, he said quietly. I've been thinking about it. $100,000. That's more than I made in 10 years working underground. That's freedom. Safety. Jess came that evening. She brought homemade soup Elise couldn't eat and brutal honesty. I'll support whatever you decide, Jess said. But Elise, look at her. Look at what this is costing. Emma slept on, her small body recovering from the crisis. Monitors beeped. Nurses came and went. And Elise sat watching her daughter, calculating the price of everything. Frank arrived on the 3rd day. He stood in the doorway of Emma's hospital room. This man who'd chosen his work over his daughter for 20 years, finally understanding what that choice had cost. Hartwell made an offer, Elise told him. I heard. 100,000. That's a lot of money for us. Frank sat down heavily. It's 1% of what's actually there. Maybe less. But it's real. It's now. It would solve everything. Would it? Frank looked at Emma, then at Elise. Your mother didn't cross an ocean and survive everything she did so her daughter could be bullied into selling her birthright for a fraction of its worth. She came to America because she believed in fighting for what was yours, in not letting powerful people take what you'd earned. This isn't about me. It's about Emma. It's about both of you. What lesson does she learn if you give up now? That when rich people want what you have, you surrender. That fighting back is too dangerous, too costly? She could have died, Dad. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there when your mother died. Sorry I chose rocks over you. Sorry I let you face 9 years of hell alone. His voice cracked. But I'm here now. And I'm telling you, your daughter is watching. She's watching how you respond when powerful people try to take what's yours. Emma stirred. Her eyes opened, focusing slowly on her mother. Mom! Hey, baby, how do you feel? Tired. Emma's hand found Elise's. Did we find the gold? The question hung in the sterile air. Simple. Direct. 8 years old and cutting through all the adult complexity to the heart of things. Yes, baby. We found it. Then don't let the mean people take it. Frank smiled despite his tears. Smart kid. She gets it from her grandmother, Elise said. That night, Hartwell's lawyer called. The offer had a deadline, 24 hours. Accept or face the consequences. Elise stood in the hospital parking lot, phone in hand, the weight of everything pressing down. $100,000. Emma's future, safety, peace, or $200 million. A fight, a war against people with more power, more resources, more willingness to destroy her. She thought about her mother, crossing an ocean pregnant and alone. About 9 years of triple shifts and diabetes management and refusing to break. About Emma's words, don't let the mean people take it. She called the lawyer back. Tell Mr. Hartwell I'm not selling. Tell him I'm not backing down. And tell him if he comes at me again, I'll bury him with everything I've got. She hung up before he could respond. Stood shaking in the cold Montana night. Terrified and exhilarated and committed. Frank found her there. You sure about this? No, but I'm done being afraid. Then we move fast. Authentication. Legal claims. We file everything before he can manufacture his crisis. And if we fail? Then we fail fighting. That's worth something too. Emma came home 2 days later, weak but recovering. The custody hearing loomed. Hartwell's deadline had passed. The war was about to begin in earnest. But for one night, Elise held her daughter close and let herself believe that sometimes the desperate gambles paid off. That sometimes the mocked single mother bought a flooded mine and found not just gold, but her own strength. Frank's attorney found Dr. Elena Vasquez through the Colorado School of Mines. A geologist with credentials that could withstand legal scrutiny and, crucially, no prior connection to Raymond Hartwell. What they didn't know was that Hartwell had already reached her first. Elena arrived in Copper Bend on a gray Thursday morning, professional and distant. Mexican-American, mid-30s, carrying equipment that cost more than Elise's car. She looked at Elise like a lab specimen requiring careful analysis. You're the woman who bought a flooded mine for $20, Elena said. Not a question. An assessment. That's me. Elise kept her voice steady despite exhaustion. Emma was home recovering, Jess watching her while Elise dealt with this crucial meeting. And you believe you found a significant gold deposit based on... Elena consulted her notes. 2 weeks of amateur pumping and a 20-year-old geological survey. I know what I saw. Frank intervened, speaking Elena's language. Dr. Vasquez, I wrote that original survey. The mineralization patterns I documented in 1986 suggested a primary deposit extending west-southwest. Ms. Tyler's samples confirmed that hypothesis. Elena's professional mask cracked slightly. She studied Frank with new respect. You're Frank Morrison. I used your paper on hydrothermal alteration zones in my dissertation. Then you know I don't make unsupported claims. They descended into the mine. Elise, Frank, Elena, and Marcus, who'd insisted on coming despite his worsening cough. The pump had done its work. The western chamber was accessible, the gold vein fully exposed and undeniable. Elena's examination lasted 4 hours. She took samples, measured the vein's dimensions, used instruments Elise didn't understand. Frank assisted, the two geologists communicating in technical shorthand that excluded everyone else. When Elena finally looked up, her professional detachment had transformed into barely contained excitement. This isn't just good, she said. This is extraordinary. High-grade native gold in a quartz matrix. Vein width averaging 8 to 12 inches over 47 meters of exposed wall. She did rapid calculations. Conservative estimate, assuming continuation at depth, $240 million. Possibly more. The number hit like a physical force. Elise gripped Marcus's arm to stay standing. "You're sure?" Frank asked. "I'm sure it's worth comprehensive drilling and assay, but based on what I'm seeing?" Elena's smile was genuine. "Ms. Tyler, you didn't just find gold. You found one of the richest undocumented deposits in Montana." They were celebrating quietly, carefully, when Elena's phone rang. She stepped away, and Elise watched her body language change, stiffen, then collapse slightly. Elena returned pale. "I need to go. I'll have preliminary reports ready by tomorrow." "What's wrong?" Frank asked. "Nothing. Just I need to handle something." She left quickly, professionally. But Elise saw something in her eyes. Fear. That evening, Elena sat in Raymond Hartwell's office, understanding finally clicking into place. The consultation request. The generous fee. The property dispute he'd mentioned so casually. "So," Hartwell said pleasantly, "what did you find at my mine?" "Your mine. Let's not play games, Dr. Vasquez. What's down there?" Elena chose her words carefully. "A significant gold deposit. Primary or high-grade mineralization." "How significant?" "Very." Hartwell smiled, opened a drawer, placed a check on his desk. "I'm doubling your fee, but I need your official report to reflect certain realities. Perhaps the deposit is smaller than it appears. Perhaps the ore quality is questionable. Perhaps Ms. Tyler's amateur assessment was overly optimistic." Elena stared at the check. $50,000. Half her student loan debt, erased. One signature. "You want me to falsify my findings. I want you to be appropriately cautious in your conclusions. To recognize the limitations of preliminary assessment." His eyes were cold. "You're a scientist, Dr. Vasquez. You understand uncertainty." "I understand what I saw." "Then understand this. You can have a lucrative ongoing relationship with my companies, or you can have nothing. Your choice." Elena took the check. "I need time to complete my analysis." 24 hours. She left his office holding $50,000 and the wreckage of her professional integrity. Her apartment that night was silent except for her own breathing. The check sat on her kitchen table. Her student loan statement beside it. One signature. Financial freedom. Everything she'd worked for. Or the truth. And poverty. Her phone rang at midnight. Her mother, calling from El Paso. "Mija, I had a feeling I should call. You okay?" Elena started crying before she could stop herself. Elena's mother listened while her daughter explained everything. The mine. The gold. The check sitting on her kitchen table like a test. "What did we teach you, Mija?" her mother asked quietly. "Your father and I, we crossed the border with nothing. We cleaned houses. We picked fruit. We worked ourselves to exhaustion so you could go to college, so you could become a scientist. You think we did that so you could sell your integrity to some rich man? Mama, it's $50,000. I don't care if it's $1 million. We didn't sacrifice everything so you could become just another person who can be bought." Her mother's voice softened. "You know what's right, Elena. You've always known." Elena hung up and stared at the check for another hour. Then she tore it into pieces and started writing her authentic report. The custody hearing began at 9 a.m. in the Copper Bend courthouse. Diane's lawyer was efficient and brutal, painting Elise as obsessed, reckless, a mother who'd endangered her daughter chasing fantasies. "Ms. Tyler purchased a dangerous property with money needed for rent," the lawyer said smoothly. "She spent weeks conducting illegal mining operations in the middle of the night. Her daughter's diabetes crisis was a direct result of this neglect." Objection. Elise's attorney stood. "Ms. Tyler has managed her daughter's diabetes successfully for 8 years. Until she bought that mine." The testimony went badly until Ms. Rodriguez took the stand. The teacher spoke with quiet authority about Emma's intelligence, about Elise's dedication, about the cruel prejudice both faced. "Emma Tyler is one of the brightest students I've taught in 20 years, Ms. Rodriguez said. "And her mother is the reason why. Elise Tyler isn't reckless. She's resourceful. She's not neglectful, she's fighting. And this custody petition isn't about Emma's welfare. It's about punishing a woman for refusing to stay in her place. Mrs. Kopecky testified next, her accent thick but her message clear. I try to evict her, yes, because I am pressured. But this girl, she pays rent always on time for 9 years. She works hard. She loves her daughter. Rich people, they want to take everything from her because she dares to hope. This is not right. The judge took the case under advisement, but something had shifted. Elise saw it in his expression. That afternoon, Elena delivered her report to Frank and Elise. 20 pages of scientific documentation verifying the $240 million deposit. And a recording clear damning of Hartwell's bribery attempt. I'm willing to testify publicly, Elena said. He tried to buy me. He needs to face consequences. Frank filed the official mining claim that evening, Elena's authentication attached. The moment the paperwork hit the county recorder's office, Hartwell's legal position collapsed. His rage was immediate and reckless. Deputy Brooks received the call at midnight. Meet the sheriff at Copper Creek. Bring the water testing equipment. But when Aaron arrived and saw the industrial solvents being unloaded, understanding hit like a fist. We're not doing this, Aaron said. The sheriff turned. Excuse me? This is evidence tampering. This is fraud. I won't be part of it. Then you can find another job. Aaron removed his badge, set it on the sheriff's car hood, and walked away. He drove straight to Marcus's house and told him everything. By morning, Reverend Brightwell had heard the rumors. He sat in his church, surrounded by pews Hartwell's money had helped restore, and faced his own conscience. He'd been complicit. He'd chosen political peace over moral courage. He called Elise. I owe you an apology, and I'm offering you my church. Present your case to the community. Let people hear the truth. The town meeting that night packed the church beyond capacity. Elise stood at the pulpit, exhausted and terrified, with Elena and Frank beside her. She told them everything. The gold, the authentication, Hartwell's bribes, the water contamination plan Deputy Brooks had exposed, Lily Hartwell's evidence, which she projected on the church wall for everyone to see. I'm not asking you to like me, Elise said. I know what people think, but I'm asking you to see what's happening. A powerful man is trying to steal something that belongs to me because he believes he's entitled to everything in this town. And if we let him do it to me, who's next? The room divided cleanly. Some stood and walked out, but others stayed, listened, began to believe. Hartwell sat in the back row, watching his carefully constructed narrative crumble, knowing his daughter had betrayed him, knowing his empire was beginning to fracture. He had one card left to play, one weapon he'd been saving. Michael Cooper was about to come home. Michael Cooper walked into the Copper Bend diner like a ghost returning to haunt his own abandoned life. 8 years older, softer around the middle, wearing expensive clothes that didn't quite fit right. Money borrowed or promised, Elise knew immediately. Hartwell's money. Jess saw him first. Her hand found Elise's arm. Don't react. Just keep pouring. But Elise's hands shook, coffee sloshing over the rim of Mrs. Patterson's cup. 8 years of silence. 8 years of Emma asking why her daddy left. 8 years of medical bills and diabetes management and explaining abandonment to a child who thought she'd somehow caused it. Michael slid into a booth, waited, making her come to him. What do you want? Elise's voice was ice. To talk. About the mine. He smiled, that same easy smile that had fooled her once. Legally, we were still married when you bought it. That makes it marital property. I'm entitled to half. The diner went silent. Everyone watching. Everyone waiting to see if Elise Tyler would break. You walked out when Emma was diagnosed. You left us with $60,000 in medical debt. You haven't sent a single child support payment in 8 years. Elise's voice rose despite herself. And now you want half of something I found? I was overwhelmed. I wasn't ready for what? Responsibility? Your daughter? The rage she'd contained for 8 years erupted. She needed you. She was 3 years old and sick and scared, and you ran away because it was hard. Elise, don't you dare justify it. Don't you dare come back now because Hartwell promised you money if you destroy me. Michael's expression shifted. Caught. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. Frank Morrison appeared behind Elise, protective. You don't get to run away for 8 years and then show up because there's money. You don't get to abandon your daughter and then claim rights to her mother's future. Michael looked at Frank. This man he'd never met, who'd stepped into the void Michael left. Who are you? I'm her father, and I know what abandonment looks like because I did it too, but at least I'm trying to fix it. You're just here to take. The legal battle became three-way, Elise versus Hartwell versus Michael. Depositions, hearings, lawyers arguing over mineral rights and marital property law. Then Elise's attorney found it. The divorce decree, filed and finalized 3 weeks before the auction. Michael's claim required proving they were legally married when she bought the mine. They weren't. The judge dismissed Michael's claim in under 5 minutes. Mr. Cooper, your divorce was finalized on September 3rd. The mine was purchased on September 24th. You have no legal standing here. Case dismissed. Michael left the courthouse humiliated, Hartwell's lawyers abandoning him immediately. He tried one last time, appearing at Jess's apartment where Emma was staying. Emma? His dad. Can we talk? Silence from behind the door. Then Emma's voice, clear and firm. I already have the family I need. You're not part of it. Michael stood there for a long moment, then walked away. Elise watched from Jess's window, feeling nothing. No satisfaction. No victory. Just the dull ache of closure. The custody ruling arrived by mail the next day. Judge's decision. Elise retains full custody. His written opinion included one line that made Elise cry. Taking calculated risks to improve one's family's circumstances is not irresponsibility. It's courage. The town's opinion shifted like wind changing direction. People who'd mocked her started nodding in the grocery store. Former customers returned to leave tips. Even Diane Cooper withdrew her visitation petition without explanation. Hartwell was isolated now, having played and lost his final card. But wounded animals were the most dangerous. And Marcus's cough was getting worse. Marcus collapsed outside the courthouse on the morning of the final hearing. One moment he was standing beside Elise, solid and steady as always. The next, he was on his knees, gasping for air that wouldn't come. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Elise rode with him, holding his hand while paramedics worked. His lips were blue. His breathing rattled like stones in a jar. Black lung, he managed. Should have quit. Years ago. Don't talk. Save your strength. But Marcus gripped her hand tighter. Listen, when that mine is operational. Safety standards. Real ones. Not like before. Promise me. I promise. Workers matter more than gold. He was hospitalized that afternoon. Stable but deteriorating. The doctor's prognosis was measured in months, maybe less. The final hearing happened without him. District Court, Judge Harrison presiding. Hartwell's attorney presented the mineral rights claim, generations of family ownership, improper transfer, legal technicalities. Then Elise's attorney systematically dismantled it using documents Lily had provided. Original deeds, transfer records, proof that Hartwell's grandfather had legally sold all rights in 1988. Elena testified about the bribery attempt, her recording playing for the courtroom. Hartwell's face remained impassive, but his knuckles whitened on the table. Deputy Brooks, subpoenaed and no longer employed by the county, described the pressure campaign. The surveillance, the planned water contamination. His voice shook but held firm. Then Lily Hartwell took the stand. She didn't look at her father as she testified. Provided emails showing conspiracy to commit fraud. Text messages detailing the false flag operation. Financial records proving systematic corruption. Why are you doing this? Hartwell's attorney asked during cross-examination. Because it's right, Lily said simply. Because my mother taught me that family legacy means nothing if it's built on cruelty. Judge Harrison's ruling was swift and decisive. Ms. Tyler has complete and valid ownership of the Ashford mine property and all mineral rights therein. Mr. Hartwell's claim is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the State Attorney General for criminal investigation into attempted fraud, extortion, and environmental crimes. Hartwell left the courthouse a broken man, his empire crumbling, his daughter lost to him forever. 6 months later, the Ashford mine hummed with carefully controlled activity. Frank oversaw operations as chief geologist, implementing extraction methods that balanced profit with environmental responsibility. Marcus, too ill to work, served as safety consultant from his hospital bed, reviewing every protocol. Elise had paid off every debt, established a trust for Emma's future, set up a fund for Jess and other struggling families in Copper Bend, bought 3 buildings Hartwell had owned, converting one into a community center. But wealth was strange and isolating. The town treated her differently now, part respect, part resentment, part uncertainty. She was no longer one of them, but she'd never be establishment either. Caught between worlds, she stood at the town meeting, Emma beside her, presenting a proposal. A worker-owned cooperative for local businesses. A scholarship fund for Copper Bend students. Using mine profits to rebuild what decades of decline had destroyed. The vote was unanimous. That evening, Elise, Emma, and Frank drove to the mine. The sun was setting, painting the mountains gold. They stood at the entrance where this had all begun, where desperation and defiance had collided into something neither expected. Did we win? Emma asked. Elise considered. They had money, security, vindication, but Marcus was dying. Lily had lost her family. The town was changed in ways not entirely comfortable. We survived, Elise said finally. And we're trying to be better than the people who tried to stop us. That's the real victory. Frank put his arm around her shoulders, a gesture 20 years delayed but finally possible. Your mother would be proud. Emma leaned against Elise. I'm proud too. They stood together as darkness fell, a family rebuilt from broken pieces. The mine behind them held fortune beyond measure. But the real wealth was here. In a daughter's trust, a father's redemption, a mother's refusal to break. Elise Tyler had bought a flooded mine for $20 and found $240 million in gold. But more than that, she'd found her voice, her strength, her place in a world that had tried to keep her small. The mountains watched, indifferent and eternal. The gold would be extracted. The mine would eventually close. But the story would remain, of the single mother who refused to stay in her place, who gambled everything on a hole full of water, and who proved that sometimes the most mocked decisions become the most transformative. Emma yawned. Can we go home now? Yeah, baby. Let's go home. They drove down the mountain toward Copper Bend, toward the apartment that would soon be a house, toward a future no longer defined by desperation. The story wasn't finished. Stories like this never truly end. But for tonight it was enough. They had survived. They had fought. They had won. And that, Elise thought, was everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.